Welcome to the Beyond the Event podcast, your home for exclusive tips, trends, and stories from local event professionals. So get ready and let's go beyond the event.
Welcome in, everybody, to the Beyond the Event podcast. We have a special guest today with Black Rock Weddings. We have Amanda Miltenberger, I believe. And I feel like that's a tongue twister, just like my last name's Hennigan, and I have to explain to everybody. So I'm sure she has a lot of fun doing explaining her last name as well.
Yes.
But she is an event planner in the Carroll County, Northern Maryland area. And I just want to start off every podcast just by doing the due diligence of letting her introduce herself, share a little bit about herself, and then we'll dive right in. So thanks for hopping on, Amanda.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. So I started my business a couple years ago. I originally started assisting under my sister-in-law in 2020 after COVID. Everyone knows how that went. There was a big boom of weddings, so she needed help, and I found a really passion for weddings and helping couples. So that's kind of how I got into it. Flash forward to 22, I got married myself, branched off into my own company, and have been doing it since then on my own. Obviously assisting, helping out fellow vendors, my sister-in-law if she needs help with a wedding, vice versa. But I really just fell in love with it. I love watching people's love stories and helping manage kind of the day of where my type A personality comes out. But yeah, I just, love it. And it's something I'm super passionate about.
Awesome. Yeah. I did not know that after doing some research online. So is your sister a planner as well, or just you?
It's my sister-in-law. She's married to my
sister-in-law, sorry.
Yeah. My sister-in-law, she's married to my oldest brother. She does coordinating as well. And she primarily does it at Pondview Farms, which is in Whitehall, Maryland.
Okay.
So gorgeous venue, but that's kind of where I learned tricks of the trade. And obviously every wedding, every year you're in business, you're constantly learning, you're constantly evolving. But kind of learned the ropes from her and then just really, really liked it. Liked the concept of people trusting you so much. This is their day, their big opportunity, and kind of sharing their love and connecting with their guests and family and friends, and they trust you in executing a day that's stress-free and not having to worry about all the nitty-gritty stuff. And it kind of was where I found, again, I could be a type A person and be organized, but also I felt like super rewarding. It was definitely filling up my cup of yeah, so I kind of learned building blocks from her. And then 2023, 2022, I got married and branched off to my own company. And I would say primarily I focus in Maryland. I have done Pennsylvania weddings, Frederick, Carroll County, Howard County. But every year you're evolving, you're learning new things as a vendor. And tricks of the trade from other vendors, from other customers, from previous experiences. So each year I feel like I'm getting better. I feel like I'm learning more to help, my couples, help myself, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry everyone listening. We got cut off earlier, so if that sounds a little chopped up, it's because we're having to stitch this together. But we are back, got connection, and yeah, that is awesome. I'm curious. I always like to ask, just in case there's any potential clients listening right now that need your services, how far would you be willing to travel, like, for your services? I know you may go, and I know you have a primary spot, but like, would it be Virginia? Would it be like, how far out would you go really to offer services?
So I do locate more DMV area. And I do have a kind of a thing in my contract for travel fees, but I would love to branch off into doing more scenic locations. I know photographers have like kind of bucket lists of, they want to do a wedding in Alaska or Arizona or something like that. So it definitely is, I'm willing to branch out and talk to, couples about, if they have destination weddings and if they
Mm,
want that extra level of support when it comes to coordinating certain things. That's definitely like, the next 5-year plans is maybe doing
like,
something that's a little bit more out of the DMV area.
gotcha. Yeah. If there was just one that you had to pick off the top of your head, what's that dream location that you would love to do a wedding at? Whether it's just a state or an actual venue or place, what's the first thing?
The Grand Canyon or like
Oh,
Arizona.
yeah.
Something out there. Like I love the like out west. We went there with my family in 21 and I love it. The red rocks, the contrast, it's something very different than what Maryland is. We kind of have the Appalachian Mountains and we have the woods and the creeks and it's all gorgeous. But it's definitely a higher contrast of what we have here. Like I said, with the red rocks and the mountains, we always claim like I went to school in West Virginia. I have a bachelor's degree from Shepherd University. And there it's always like West Virginia, you have the mountains there, but out west, it's completely different. It's insane and so much bigger, brighter. So that would be my dream. I would love to do a wedding out there.
Yeah. Hopefully that happens for you. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Um, The furthest I've ever gone west was Denver, and Denver was a really, really cool place with the mountains in the background. It's just a whole different vibe. I've been in Maryland my entire life. I don't get out much. I don't travel much. So going to Denver, I think it was 2 years ago, was a really nice trip. And the views are something that I'm a little bit jealous of the West for.
Absolutely.
Something I actually read on your bio. I don't know how many people. I mean, we have a about page on our website too. I don't know who reads them out there, but I actually read yours to kind of get more familiar with you. And I saw that you got married at Good Feelings Farm. Tell me about that experience. We washed their tent. No, we didn't wash their tents. We helped them install that tent one year. And I actually had a friend that got married there. How was that experience?
We love them. Karen, who
Yep.
owns the venue, we actually, so this is funny. We actually were one of their first couples to book. We had a longer engagement because my husband and I, we wanted to buy a house before we got married. So we were touring the venue actually before they had the tent, before they had their cocktail hour space, before they had made a lot of the renovations that they have now. And pretty much we're just two people who like had this vision and they are so nice and so caring and you can really tell that they love what they do and they love their venue. That we were just like, you know what, we are going to go off of pretty much pictures that you're giving us and they knocked it out of the park. We loved getting married there. Everything about the venue, and just the kind of just open line of communication that we have with them and with other vendors. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. And every single time I see that they post something or they're having a wedding, they're constantly renovating, they're constantly updating. So you can really tell that they care a lot about what they provide to couples because I think they just put up a new gazebo, updating their cocktail hour space. So it's gorgeous over there.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think it was 2023, I think, is when my close friends got married there, and it was a great time. It was a beautiful wedding. And I see pictures all the time online. That's definitely in Carroll County a great spot to get married at.
Absolutely.
So I want to bring up something pretty interesting. I had another planner on another episode, and it was something that I still think about that we mentioned and kind of talked about. And I saw on your website that you mentioned, or you pretty much referenced that it's month of coordinating. And something I posted about that we dove into with Heidi from Innovative Party Planners. She mentioned, and we've been doing events, not just weddings, but events for 15 years with tent and event rentals. And I never really considered, that's one reason for doing this podcast, is kind of just to dive in and hear how other vendors and event professionals run their businesses and help their clients, and just learning as we call them, the tricks to the trade. And she mentioned something that was so profound, that day of coordinating is kind of, she didn't mention that it was like wasteful or a waste of time or money or whatever, but like you can't really jam everything into only being a day of. And I noticed on your site that it said month of services, and that's exactly what Heidi, I'm glad there's a similarity there. What talk to me about maybe what you have experience with, and why you maybe agree with that point as to why day of is just too much.
Yeah. Day of is non-existent in my opinion, because in order to be a good coordinator and to be, really connect with your couple, you need more than a day. You need more than a week. You need more than that small amount of time to really understand what their vision is, what they want from their day, and how they want their wedding to be executed. There's no possible way. So before I book couples, and you get inquiries, you get emails, texts, whatever, I like to have a phone convo or a FaceTime call so that they really can know me. They know my personality. I can get to know them, what they want, what the vision is. I had a couple I called last week, and they're like a very garden party style. They're getting married at the Howard County Conservatory. And, there's no way to smush it into that little bit of a time. So that's why it's me for month of, because we have, the constant line of communication from when you book with me to up to your date. I'm not just going to ghost you and be like, I'm never going to see you till the day of.
Right.
And we have a 30-day meeting at the venue. We walk through everything. We detail everything, where you want things placed, how you want things rearranged, and what the whole vibe of the day you want it to be. So I 100% agree with Heidi that, day of is just, it's non-existent. Like, you can't really do your job well enough in that small amount of time, because you don't know them. Like, you can't understand the whole aspect of the day to execute it the way that they want in that short amount of time.
Right. And I feel like the importance of, building that bond and that connection, and knowing that that's a trusted vendor. Imagine if it was if it was just day of or whatever, and things weren't really going well, then there's just friction, maybe tension, and then it just kind of unspirals from there. So yeah, she was mentioning that on another episode, and I just couldn't, I was just mind blown. I'm like, wow. Cause we deal with event planners all the time, and something that's been mentioned before is like a lot of our work is done in advance. Like, we do 3D designs of the tent. We show different pictures. We do all kinds of stuff to really plan in advance, but the event planner and coordinator is just the nucleus to the entire event, which kind of brings me into my next point. Is talk to me, I guess, a little bit about maybe your secret sauce with dealing with other vendors, and how you're able to put everything on display for the day of. Because now, with you having event planning services, are you actually at each wedding that you book? Like, if I hired you today and my wedding was 2 months from now, and we start to do the planning process, will you be there the day of as well? Or is it planning and then they're good to go on the day?
So I'm there day of as well. My contract is like 12 plus hours. So I'm there planning with you as well as the day of. Another kind of notation is when we build relationships with clients, and I build relationships with my couples, I also can kind of gauge what's important and what's not important to them. Because my goal as a coordinator is, if something happens, if there's a problem, I don't even want you to know about it. I don't want you to have to worry. I don't want you to have to even know something happened. And creating a relationship with a couple helps you make decisions that they would be okay with. And kind of being able to adjust as needed. With the day of, I'm there start to finish. So I'm there before they get there. I'm there till after they leave. Because of everything that goes on the day of that a lot of people don't think about, switching decor, setting up centerpieces, lighting candles, turning on the batteries of all the candles, switching, people pay obviously a lot of money for weddings, whether it's your photographer or your videographer or your flowers. You pay a lot of money. I was a bride. I got married in 2022. I know how much that price tag was. So when they have like this beautiful arbor piece, ceremonies lasting half hour, and then you're kind of, done with that area of the venue, I kind of step back and think, if it was my day, I paid really good money for it. I want to still enjoy it. So we switch it to the front of your sweetheart table, or we take the whole arbor and we put it behind your sweetheart table. So you still can enjoy it. You still enjoy what the florist did for you, or even the fake flowers that you bought that I put up for you. And you still can get that full aspect. A lot of people like don't think about that, or you don't want to sign your Aunt Barbara or your Uncle Joe to like have to do all that stuff the day of. So that's kind of where I come in to relieve that stress and think about like the little stuff that you have to have someone do when you're taking pictures and you're at cocktail hour and stuff like that.
Yeah, I love this podcast. I just learned something about that, like being able to kind of get the most out of everything that you're really paying money for. That's interesting. That's a really neat, I guess, way to, like I just said, get the most out of everything with the arbor. Rolling it back in from the ceremony over to the reception is a really neat thing. With a lot of planners, I wouldn't say a lot, but I guess there's maybe like a fine line, or maybe it's definitive. But do you do a lot of design as well? Like, do you offer decor? Do you do a lot of the designing, or is it more so they tell you the vision and you put it together?
So there's a line between, in my opinion, between planners and coordinators.
Okay.
So planners are going to be much more involved. They're with you from day one. They're going to go with you to vendor meetings. They're going to help you pick vendors. They're going to help you pick colors, florals, and more kind of understand the whole like aspect from day one of what you want. I always like to say, like, if you're looking for a wedding planner, it's really called The Wedding Planner. It's a movie with Jennifer Lopez in it. I think Matthew McConaughey's in it. I think so. Maybe.
I think I know what you're talking about. I've
Yeah.
never seen it, but I do think I know which one you're talking about.
That's what a planner is. Like, she goes and helps pick out florals and these statues that they want, like very much more involved. Where me as a coordinator, I am obviously still very involved, but it's more closer to the day of. I'm more for couples who know what they want. They are able to make those decisions. Obviously, I'm always here for support. Can call, I don't know when should I send out my invites? How should I do this? Or do you have recommendations for a good videographer? I'm still there for those aspects, but they're able to make choices on their own. Like, they know they want to have green as their color or purple as their color. I don't step in until the nitty gritty stuff towards the end, which I feel like a lot of couples, at least in this demographic, that's what they want. That's what they're here. We're not like more of a New York or LA or style of wedding industry in this demographic, where I feel like the coordinating is definitely more beneficial versus a planner.
Yeah. Well, I think of it, I mean, I got married in 2019, and my wife, I didn't have to do much, I'll be honest. I picked our caterer, and I guess you could say that's maybe the typical role of the husband or whatever. I tried to be there. I tried to get into all the details, but it didn't matter what color. She could have, I think I had a pink tie, and like, I just, whatever color she wanted, I just rolled with it. And, but the day of, now I do remember our wedding day, we were getting pictures up here and the cocktail hour was even further back. And then we were waiting for the reception. And like in that gap, I think is where we hit our most hurdles of timing, because we found out. So we were trying to get pictures done and we looked down and we got married under a tent. And we didn't have ice on, I guess, for all the reception, alcohol and beer and everything. It didn't have ice. So we're running, my whole family, groomsmen, my brothers, they're all running down, putting ice. And Brittany, my wife, she's going crazy. Like, they need to be up here. And she's freaking out. Is that something that you would have been able, if you were on site, been able to solve that problem and been like, you know, making sure that that was already handled to where we wouldn't have had to worry about it?
So, when I have a couple, we do, like I mentioned before, a 30-day meeting. This 30-day meeting it's like a 2-hour long meeting. We go through all the ins and outs. I get all of your contact info for your vendors, what they're bringing, when they're supposed to be bringing it, who's bringing the alcohol, who's bringing the beverages, what's catering providing, what's your tablescape supposed to look at. And then I create a timeline off of that meeting. So not only is it a mental note for me, like, you know, flowers are arriving at noon, caterers are arriving at 1, so on and so forth. It also kind of brings a level of ease to the couple, because then they can look at it and kind of have a plan for the day as well. But yeah, stuff like that, like putting drinks on ice, making sure that there's a cake knife and set when they cut the cake, making sure that, you know, when their maid of honor or best man's about to give a speech, they're not in the bathroom or they're not outside. All those kind of things I do additionally throughout the day so that it's seamless. Like I said, my biggest goal is to make sure that there's no stress. They're able to enjoy, they're able to party, have fun, and not worry about, you know, if there's no ice on the drinks or there's the dessert tables run out and they need to refill the cupcakes or something on the dessert table. All of those aspects I take care of, which is the biggest reason people hire coordinators, because you don't want to have to think about all the little stuff that happens during the day.
Right. Yeah. If I could go back, I bet you we probably, like, I mean, you never want to get married twice, hopefully, but if I did, I definitely think that's something that we overlooked for sure. And a videographer. Our biggest regret is we didn't have video for our wedding, and it's something we regret to this day. So with day of, there's a lot of other vendors involved. You have catering moving, you've got DJ playing songs, and like you said, making sure everything runs smoothly. What is maybe some tips or tricks if it's somebody out there listening right now that is in the position of hopefully learning from my mistakes, and they could hire someone such as yourself? What are some tips, tricks, expertise that you could share that maybe helps move the day along that somebody, you know, your average person wouldn't really know?
I think it's more just make yourself a priority in the day. And when I mean that is when you get married, the whole goal of a wedding is marrying your best friend, marrying your soulmate. Everything else is extra. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about, you know, stressing about all the nitty-gritty stuff. Hire someone that will do it for you, and just making sure that you're hiring a team that you trust and that is professional and that has good quote unquote rapport with others. Because I always ask after I have a wedding, I always ask for reviews, because in my opinion, when I was a bride and the shoe was on the other foot and I was looking for vendors, I looked at reviews. I said, you know, I want to know what other people thought, what their experience was. So I always ask my couples, like, hey, it's liquid gold. Like, everyone loves to see reviews, and it's really good to know what other people's experiences were. So if you have a good person taking lead, like a coordinator, that's the biggest thing I can always say is, you know, make sure you're setting yourself up for success and that you're getting quality vendors for the day of.
Right. Yeah. Is there, I'm sure you probably have a whole arsenal of people that you work with. Does it change when you have people that you've worked with before and in the past that you're familiar with versus new vendors? Like, is there just a little difference, or would you say a big difference when it comes to working with other vendors and that rapport factor?
I would say, I mean, there's definitely a difference. You get comfortable as a vendor when you consistently go to a certain venue or you work with a certain photographer. You kind of just learn how each other works, and you get comfortable. So I wouldn't say it's like a huge difference, but there definitely is a difference. I have heard stories from other venues, other vendors who, as a coordinator or planners, have had really bad experiences with other companies before. And I try to be as effective as possible because the connotation with being a coordinator or a planner is that you're this like strict person and nothing's gonna change and everything's gonna be this way. And although that is correct in its own sense, it's not all that. I would say that's about 70% of the day. I do with other like vendors, especially photography, videography, and catering, because they're the big ones of the day. Like, let's say you're doing photos at cocktail hour, but they want to try one more spot and they need like 5 more minutes. Okay, we'll flex. Like, I'm totally cool with that. Like, we'll fine. Let's flex, because at the end of the day, no one's going to remember the extra 5 minutes, but the couple's going to remember those photos or that video or that shot that was really beautiful. No one's going to remember the 5 minutes. So it really just depends on if I've worked with the vendor before, photo, video, DJ, anything like that. I kind of know what their process is and kind of personality wise, and kind of can flex either way. So it really just depends. I try my best to not be the person that's like, oh, it has to be exactly like this. Because life happens. Like, I always tell all of my couples, every single one, no matter how much you plan, no matter what happens, something will go wrong on the day of. It always does, no matter what. But that's why you hire people that you trust, to make sure that you don't notice it. Like my day when I got married, my bustle broke on my dress. Happens. My bridesmaids fixed it. We were good to go. It's happened to me, to one of my couples. I fix it and we're good to go. But that's the biggest thing, is when you kind of have to ebb and flow throughout the day, not only with things that happen, but also other vendors. So it just kind of just depends.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't even imagine. I know we have a tremendously challenging job for what we do. Our big thing is really just time. We have to be mindful of how many events we can take on in a week. And it's like, the more, especially during the peak season, the May, the June, September, and October for the fall weddings. It's just our biggest challenge in advance to any weekend or event is just getting it all in. So we deal with a lot of coordinating in advance, like, Amanda's got her wedding and she needs delivery on Thursday, and I've got my wedding and I need delivery on Thursday as well. And you're in Bel Air and we're down in DC. It's just like, we try to pull off the impossible every single week, and then you can do it again the next week. And it's just a lot of coordinating in advance. But I give so much respect and admiration and just gratitude to planners, coordinators, and everybody day of. Because a lot of our work is essentially done in advance. We're testing the lights, and of course, like you said, anything can happen. But making sure we sit with the client before we leave that day and saying, hey, like, here is all of your lighting. It's all plugged into this, outlet and this source. You're good to go. Here's how you work this. Here's all of your items, and we just make sure, unless they got set up service or something, we get everything planned and prepped in advance to eliminate any of those last minute, hey, we're missing 10 chairs or something, crazy like that. But yours, there's just no second chance. Like, you do have to kind of coordinate and be on point and get everything running smoothly. yeah, that's just, I love hearing more about just how the day of stuff works, especially with the different types of vendors that we get to speak with. I actually didn't realize, or I guess know too much about how the difference between a planner and a coordinator. With your month of services, is that usually when people are hiring? Like if I was getting married next year, could I hire you today, or is that something that would have to, get closer to the event date?
Yeah, I'm actually looking out till 2026. I still have a couple of 2025 dates available as of right now. But I am booking into 2026. I already have a couple different couples booked. But yeah, it's we get down to the more involved stuff obviously closer to the day, but
Mm.
I'm able to book whenever, and it's an open line of communication. I'm not just gonna like sign the contract, you book me, and then I don't talk to you for a year. um,
Right.
if you have questions, anything, I'm super and communicative with my couples, and questions, because like you said, hopefully you only get married once, all that stuff. But a lot of people, they don't know, they don't know what to write on the invite. They don't know that they need to include their vendors on their head count. There's so many things you don't know unless you're in the industry. You've been part of several weddings, and that's again what I'm there for. I'm not just gonna show up the day of and be like, okay, I'm here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's definitely, I have such a high appreciation for it. And especially with my own experiences, it's actually really important that you've been married, and have kind of gone through the process. It might be a little, you know, odd to say, you're giving wedding advice, but have never been married or whatever. So I think it is definitely important for that. Same thing with us. Like it would be, I told my wife, like if she wanted something different, just because we do tents and we're in the tent space, I would want it obviously because I stand by our product and our services, but it's more or less the vision. And I know that when it comes to a wedding, people dream about this for a long time. It's something very special to them. And my wife never had any like dreamy childhood, like, it needs to be this, it needs to be that. But so we kind of created this custom aspect of it, and being a product of our own and making sure we do it all the time, making sure we know what to look for to make sure everything runs smooth on our end is always critical. So having somebody in your corner, especially day of and especially leading up to, there's so many things that I feel like you could definitely overlook, that you have a lot of value in, and having so much value that you can provide to an event. I guess talk a little bit about, is there any, maybe, I'd hate to bring it up, but like terrible stories that you have where it's like you were trying to do your job, you were trying to add value to the event day and make sure everything ran smooth, but there was somebody in the crowd or family or friends that just knew better and said it should be this way. Does that happen often?
It does happen often. It's I I always joke that I don't believe in bridezillas. Bridezillas aren't real. It's momzillas, auntzillas, or grandpazillas.
Yeah.
Because it's you kind of always have someone, and it's kind of I have a very sarcastic personality and a very dry sense of humor sometimes. So kind of test the waters a little bit, if they say something done this way, you kind of talk professionally, like play off to the point of, obviously you don't want to make them angry, but kind of redivert their direction and be like, oh, well, can you go up there and see where the groom's at, and kind of just
Hmm.
refocus their attention. It definitely is an art. Sometimes it's a little bit trickier than others. I can't think of like one scenario that's sticking out. I've had people who've shown up to a wedding that weren't invited that I've had to ask to leave. I would say that's
Oh
probably
my
my most,
gosh.
yeah, that's my most like confrontational one I've had. But again, I'm a very like obviously professional firsthand, but I'm a very straightforward person. Be respectful and say, hey, you weren't welcome here by the couple, you need to leave. But
Right.
that's the most like dramatic thing I've probably had when it comes to guests or having to deal with a situation. The most like chaotic one I've had is when we were doing introductions into the reception, the bride had lost her ring off her finger.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
so she obviously is freaking out. She's panicking. Um, in the back of my mind, I'm this stuff. So she obviously is crying. She's hysterical. I go to calm her down. We try to refocus. I'm like, you know what? This is what we can do. Right now, I'm going to look for it. All you can do now is continue on with the rest of your evening, what we have planned, what's scheduled. I ended up going to the photographer, looking at the pictures because they were obviously taking pictures through cocktail hour. When was the last time the ring was on her finger, location wise? Because at that point, you're walking around the whole venue. You're going here, you're going there. So who knows? Drop off instructions. We start serving dinner, and then I had asked some of the venue staff to help me look. It's a November wedding, so it's getting dark outside. So we're out there with flashlights, and we ended up finding it. So it all worked out. But it's kind of just a sense like you needed to just kind of refocus her. And afterwards, she was so grateful, so appreciative, and just was like overjoyed, which was obviously great for us. But there's definitely there's definitely some stories in there when you work weddings and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh, I cannot imagine experiencing that. Especially with the November wedding with the sun going down and knowing like in your mind, you're probably just like, I'm running out of time. I don't know what to do. I gotta, that's just insane. Wow. Yeah. Well, I guess you
Yeah,
could say the
it
good
was
news
definitely
is,
crazy.
yeah, the good news is if that's the worst and it all worked out in the end, then you're doing pretty well. But yeah, that's interesting with the momzillas, and we love all of our clients. We love everything that we do, but it's a bond, it's a relationship, and the more work you do up front, the better it is in the end. And I think also that it's like emotions. So in sports, we got the playoffs happening right now leading up to the Super Bowl, and it's like tensions fly. You got in a sporting game or event of any sort, you've got people that are frustrated on the field, but you don't, you're shaking hands at the end. And I feel like that's a lot like the event space. Things are flying high and time is ticking, but at the end you're like, hey, thank you so much for everything that you did, without you. And so I get it. It's an emotional day. It's an emotional event. So which just makes it more special, in my opinion. That's why I love what we do, and I definitely can assume that that's why you love what you do as well. We are in 2025 now. We're moving into this techie, young motion of weddings. How would you say that's changing with what you do and having to use maybe different software tools through your planning process? What are some trends and things? Where do you see the event coordinating space leaning towards? Is it something that's pretty cookie cutter and it's just all about finding that right person to connect with and company to connect with? Or is there some competitive advantage to what you offer and some of the resources that you're taking advantage of to offer a better product to your clients?
I think the biggest thing is social media. And I think any vendor that's currently active in 2025 is going to say that too. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all those are such a great platform to market. I mean, I do spend a portion of money each year on ads, on marketing, on just business material as like any business would. But a lot of the brings in new clients, even for venues. Like I did a TikTok at a venue, and actually I received 2 couples from it because they were like, oh, we were looking at the venue, we saw underneath the venue that the TikTok was tagged in it, and we found you. I'm like, okay, great. So like that's kind of making the people that post interactive things, which is like reels on Instagram or TikToks, something that's relatable and something that's funny, kind of brings that little bit of edge over someone who may not be doing it or executing it as well or as much. That was actually my New Year's resolution for myself and for my business, is to be more proactive on social media, try to make better content, and reach audiences that I've been touching base with. Or but yeah, I mean, it's a great tool that I think everyone uses. I was so sad when TikTok was banned for like 18 hours or whatever it
Yep.
was.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure if it was gonna come back, but I'm so happy that it did. But I mean, making that content that's relatable, that people can, in the wedding planning process, or people who just got engaged can relate to, it just already builds that connection. They're like, oh, this person's, relatable, or I like what they're bringing to the table, and they reach out to you. And it's just, again, goes back to connecting and marketing and just meeting new people.
Yeah, I use TikTok a lot. I don't post. That's the thing. I'm not very good at posting online with creating those, videos the way that everybody does. But it's definitely a powerful tool. And the whole world was paying attention when TikTok was temporarily interrupted, for sure. It's a great tool. And we actually are in the same boat in terms of trying to get more on the TikTok space. And I don't know, it's taken the world by storm. So it's a great tool to connect with. And speaking of connecting, for one, I really appreciate you sharing everything today. I love doing episodes and connecting with vendors and local event professionals, because I was taking notes the whole time and learning a lot of just how some things that you experience and just things that I overlook. Because we don't, again, in our space, we don't get to be there all the time. And that's one thing with pictures, something that drives me nuts about what we do. So a lot of our work is done in advance, and with our pictures, it's like we want those special photos of everything set up, and we want to see what your work looks like and how the final product. So like, back when I was installing pretty much all of our tents for our company when we were a lot smaller, but now we have a larger team and we're growing, you're walking away, you're putting all the equipment back in the truck, and it's like, there it is. There's the tent, but then in comes the magic way later. So we miss the juice from it. So I just really appreciate you sharing your expertise, sharing those stories, and your tips and everything that you've shared today. It's been great connecting with you. And like I said, speaking of connecting, I hope that everyone listening here, if you need Amanda and her services, where would they go to connect with you online? Where's the best way?
So our website is BlackRock Weddings 22 .com, and that has pretty much all of my information on there. Gives you a rundown of everything I offer with my pricing, and then we're on social media, so Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all BlackRock Weddings, or BlackRock Weddings 22, depending what platform it is. But I'm also, always on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, reaching out to the vendors, following people, trying to just connect and build those relationships as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to go follow you on TikTok. We definitely are connected on Instagram, but I'm going to go follow you on TikTok and hold you accountable to make sure you're posting some good TikToks in 2020. I'm looking forward to seeing more of your work.
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time, getting ready to chat with you, and it was awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely, Amanda. Thank you.